Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. It is G here. I might not be seen much today, but we are going to Venice. Me and my boys, we are taking the train from Milan into Venice. And I'm really excited because we're going to see an art exhibit that one of my friends is actually presenting in, my friend from Chicago. And I'm going to tell you more about that. The boys love the train, even though it's like a 3-hour train ride. When we arrive, there is a huge discussion of whether or not we will be taking a boat or a submarine to get to where we need to go. So we're getting tickets. They're arguing about boats versus submarines. But of course, we will not be taking a submarine. And we are taking a water taxi to the art exhibit. First, though, we're going to be meeting my friends. So this is a Biennale, which is something from all over the world. They're going to be showing different parts of art. And we take a little break first to the park because the boys were on the train for like 3 hours. And even though they were good, they need to let out some steam. We have some lunch. Look how pretty this ravioli is. And then we're heading to the art exhibit. So this is the art exhibit. It's Biennale architecture. So guys, this is amazing. So if you don't know, this exhibit covers like architecture, and it's focused on recycling and plastic, doing something different in our world. So there's representatives from lots of different countries here, and I'm really excited. So I'm going to tell you right now, I'm pushing a stroller in gravel. And to say the most, it doesn't work. So we're going pretty slowly. Anyway, the first exhibit that we get to see is the exhibit from the US. This is actually where my friend's exhibit is. Now, he usually works in wood and metals and furniture, but he made some special pieces just for this exhibit, which we are seeing here. They are all made of plastic and they are weaved to create different types of baskets, and it looks very ethnic, it looks very African, and I'm going to tell you, I love it. Side note, he actually made some furniture for my house that was in Chicago that I left with a friend, who I thought was a friend, to keep for me, and that bitch stole my furniture and sold it. And now this man is making art that is all over the world. Can you imagine the value of my let's not talk about it. Let's see the rest of everything. So these exhibits are multifaceted. So like there's a sound exhibit. There is also some other art using styrofoam that, well, I guess it's plastic, but it's not just styrofoam. As reusable things like moldings for your house and things like that, like different things. So that's what we're looking at right now. So basically here is all of the things that they collected that has been thrown away. And you see they're creating from this trash moldings and things like this, decorative moldings that you can use in your house. So, I mean, there is so much ingenuity in these projects. So I'm loving to see this and think about things differently. And hopefully these are the types of things that will change the environmental impacts of us in the world. So making things that basically are not going to degrade, that are going to live forever, and repurpose them for things that, you know, we all want and use. So on our way back out, we pass this really interesting space. So we go inside and it's the Rolex exhibit. So I'm not quite sure what the reusable part of this is, but you know how we all feel about Rolex, right? It's so high end. So to think about them also using recyclables is amazing. So these are just some of the displays that they are showing here in this room. And I didn't stop to really read everything, but I just thought I'd show it to you guys, just so you know that Rolex is actually thinking about this as well, because I think it's an amazing thing for for companies like that are actually the bigger impacts to our world, our corporations, far more than people. So for them to be thinking about it as well, as much as their watches cost, it's important. So we obviously left the US, but this next space had some of the most amazing exhibits. And it was really, really quite beautiful and interesting. By the way, stay tuned because I did talk to one of the artists about an amazing project that is happening in the US. So I just wanted to share a little bit. The kids are actually really enjoying this as well, and this was really a nice mobile, and you can see that the boys are enjoying it as well. And we got our auntie with us, so she's spinning one of them around in the stroller so that he can keep up. I can't take him out of the stroller, y'all. I wish I could, but this little one, he's a wild thing, and I can't even. So to keep him safe and us safe, there we go. Anyway, moving on. So I thought this was really cool. And I haven't been to the continent yet, and it is one of my biggest desires to go. But walking through this space is like a typical, I don't want to say typical. It is a home, or the feeling of the home in Africa. And you get this idea of being in one of the homes that are there. So let's go inside. And it really actually felt quite real in some respect. Like it felt like, oh my God, I just walked into somebody's like space, like their house with all of their things. And, it felt very warm. And so I really liked this exhibit as well. This is a little bit of the artist. What I didn't know is that Africa only is responsible for 4% of the carbon emissions in all of the world. 4%, as big as the continent is. That speaks volumes to me, that they're still connected to what's important in nature and everything like that. And it's amazing. So as you can see, the kids are still enjoying themselves. There's Auntie helping me out with all of her patience and love. I actually didn't get a chance to figure out exactly what this exhibit was, but the kids were happy because they could interact with it a bit more than anything else. So we spent a little time in here letting them sit and kind of look and touch what they could touch. So you might wonder, how did all of this exhibit in Italy have so much focus on Blackness? Actually, this is one of the most important things because a South African person who coordinated this, South African Black person who's coordinated this, and they brought all of these people of color from all around the world to display their art. And this woman did something on texture and hair. So I just thought the pictures of the different hair textures was really beautiful. Now we're getting into more of like the architecture things and different ways we can be recyclable with architecture, different ways we can live, how we can start incorporating our properties, our homes with the environment. So I'm going to let you guys, we're going to actually go into an exhibit about South Carolina right now. And this is where I get a chance to actually talk to the artist and find out some things that I really, really didn't know. So guys, I'm just gonna show you guys this and let him speak. Ciao. Good, how are you? Ignore him. Just ignore him. He needs to... Good question. Maybe someone gave me a break. Yes, I'm definitely enjoying it. So she was telling me this is about like I was reading South Carolina.
Yeah, this is Julie's Dash's Daughters of the Dust.
Okay.
Came out in the 90s. And when we first saw this in the 90s, it looks like Africa.
Yes.
So this is the go out.
Wow.
And so then we were working in Phillips, which is in South Carolina, not in the islands. It's right outside of Charleston.
Okay.
It was my first encounter with the culture, and so we did a master plan for them, which tried to help. There was a road, they wanted to ram a 6-lane road through the community, which would have killed it. So we came up with this plan. He's really fun.
No, it's fake crying. Okay. He's tired.
So we came up with a plan to help them fight the road.
Okay.
And then that helped them also become a historic district. And they're still like suffering from the pressures, but that was done like 10 years ago. But one thing that came out of it was this idea of the overgrown, like one of the older gentlemen there, he was like Richard, he was like, yeah, Walter, we keep, they have these long lots, and each family had a lot when they got out of the plantation, and they've been on the land since then.
Wow.
But what was happening was the suburbanization, so this idea of the overgrown, of creating these almost like conservation right-of-ways that were linear, it would give this community a different logic, so they didn't have something.
So, I'm sorry, so are these like people who got kind of their 40 acres?
Yeah, we can go and look at it. And it really wasn't through the Freedmen's Bureau. It was actually because Laurel Hill Plantation was here.
Okay.
And the master said, okay, you guys are free. I'm going to give you this land. And so he gave them 10,000 acres. So you can kind of see the long lots.
Wow.
And so everybody had access to water. And so I was just turned on by this beautiful logic, and you kind of see in the 30s, you could still read it. And this was an old Indian trail that came through, which is pretty typical, right? And then you can kind of see as time goes on, in the 50s, they were still fine.
Right.
But then heirs' rights, you start to see by the 80s and 90s, the suburbs are coming through. And when these suburbs come through, each one has only one way in, right? Which creates this kind of traffic. So these streets then have to be big. Because if you take, let's say, that's just 100, let's say, like 10,000 people here, 10,000 people here, trying to get out of a little road, it just creates this crazy new pattern. And that's what suburbanization does.
Yeah.
And so we were like, we want to save this logic. And so that's what the plan tries to do. And so then on 41, which is a road, that's 41 cutting through, but then on the road out here, they modernized it, but that was the Sweetgrass Mile. And you could go and buy baskets. So you just, in your car, you just pull over, there's a stall, and they modernized the road.
Okay.
So people
Okay, artist, I'm gonna take care of you.
So we said, let's do a speculative project for this, where we say, bring back the master plan, and then let's think about sweetgrass, and where sweetgrass comes from. So we then went back in time and started with the diaspora of sweetgrass. And we tied that to the slave movement. And that map here is 1619, the confluence of sweetgrass and slaves.
Wow.
And the basket making then became a product of that. And so we're now trying to get to the basket making through this new architecture, right, and walkways. So everything is made in from the local wood. But at the end of the day, now they can sell their baskets.
These baskets are beautiful.
Which a basket sells for like $500. And so now they have architecture in place that's theirs, and they're not relying on the county.
Wow. And this is all in the Carolinas.
South Carolina.
Okay.
And what's nice that's happening now is we're just finishing a museum in Charleston, the International African American Museum that you guys have published as well. And that's opening next month.
Yeah, they have a few women from the Carolinas. I met a woman, and her grandmother was a basket weaver whose basket is in the Smithsonian.
Yeah.
I don't know her name though.
No, I mean, there's so many of them.
Yeah,
There's so many
okay.
of them. And Elijah is one, he's in one of these. Oh, he's Elijah. But here's Elijah making a basket.
Yeah.
But here's a typical thing, like this is Richard's sister. And she ended up moving here. And she and her husband, because they're like, we don't want to live this rural life, right? We want to get our own thing. So she has a nice suburban house, right? So we started doing the plan, and she's just like, we want to move back because this is like so antiseptic, and lawns and trying to keep the deer out. And the old cemeteries are actually embedded in the suburbs.
Oh, wow.
So Oma did a map. It's this one here, the 1700s. The new suburbs are actually built on top of old houses. Which means the burial grounds are in the suburbs.
Yeah.
And that's
Under your house.
Yeah. And so it's almost like the same plantation system being made again, but it's through these modern artifacts, which you don't really think about. And they're like given what's like something less. They've given these new names.
Yeah. Oh, there you go.
And it's like completely erased.
Yeah. No preservation of the burial grounds. We only saw
They do
one
put fences
little
around
thing.
them, but they're in the middle
Okay.
of white conflicts. Yeah. So it's even like going to pay your respects, you have to go through this other alien landscape. And then when people see you, they're like, what are you doing
What are
here?
you doing here?
Wow.
No, the Low Country is a wonderful place, and like you said, like here you can kind of see what we were trying to show. It's like all of this vegetation, they're trying to get rid of it, right? Because they're making the suburbs, and their biggest thing in the suburbs is how do you get rid of this vegetation? Because people want to live in
Cul-de-sac.
with no trees.
No trees.
Yeah, it's like air conditioned.
No trees.
I mean, they have trees, but not like this.
Yeah. They're
It's
Some
pretty
of these
rural.
communities are more like there's a big it's not immediately here, but they have like the golf course communities. It's this whole thing of this sort of rolling landscape that is very
See it right here. It's like everybody has their own little thing to get to the water. But you can see the tree cover. Like, it's all like we have a park. Where our house is, we have nothing.
because this is an image of Phillips actually, and this notion of what they call the overgrown. So if you live with it the way that they do it, it becomes part of your life. But
Yeah.
if you don't live there, it's like, well, that's like
Poor people.
the poor people, sort of they don't have the ability to clean up their space or whatever. I don't know. There's this whole layer of perceptions of that, and so that's it's not that they don't like the trees. It's what it comes with the idea of just letting the landscape
right.
grow. I love because we have to translate it into Italian, and in Italian, like piante selvatiche is the translation to overgrown. It sounds like very jungle-like because there's no translation for that word, but it is a connotation rather than the actual tree. So the baskets, this is that logic of like the basket houses can be inspired by the activity of making baskets, but it also functionally can be connected to maintaining this overgrowth. Because in the south you have to cut it every once in a while, because otherwise it just goes too much. It takes over.
And it grows.
So the idea that this is something that brings that full circle is like how do you actually manage the overgrowth, but also are inspired by the practices that are cultural. It's kind of that's where all of this comes from, as Walter was saying, as a provocation. Like, what if we were to think this way instead of trying to erase or redo kind of?
Now with this, we can go back and originally and say, let's develop these houses. Let's build some baskets. So it's more of a provocation for the show has allowed us to go back and re-engage.
Right.
Because this is a recent thing that they now have, their historic district. And so now, because even the master plan here was done through the School of the Art Institute. Right, we were like part of it. We came down and was part of the School. So it's really interesting that that art is actually the thing that's true.
Some heat.
Right, curious in the way that as an artist have to tell us. As I was getting my MFA, that was some of the things that I was really interested in. How do you bring all of these things to life?
How did you get involved? Are you not from the area?
I'm from North Carolina.
You're from North Carolina.
I never, South Carolina, like very similar to her. It's like we would call them Geechee. I never knew why we called
them
Geechee,
Geechee
because they ate rice.
well, also the language from
Gullah Geechee. But
Gullah
for
Geechee.
us, we just said Geechee. And what I was told as a kid is we called them that because they ate rice. We had no understanding of the history. But then when I went to South Carolina to be in the Spoleto Art Festival, that's when I'm like, that's why we call them Geechee. But we left out Gullah.
Right.
And then Gullah Geechee. And then in somewhere, the Gullah Geechee became national. So from North Carolina, where I'm from, all the way down to Florida, this is where people still have Gullah traditions. And I just was reading this morning Jim Brown died.
Yeah.
And Jim Brown is from one of the South Sea Islands.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Michael Jordan is from Michael Jordan's Gullah.
But he went to the University of North Carolina.
Yeah, but he's from Wilmington.
Oh.
Right? And again, we're all coming from that same diaspora with these physical scripts. This is my thing in my brain. It's like you start then making this connection, like who's the radio guy in the morning, bald head?
Where?
In New
Steve
York?
Harvey?
No, something to God. Charlemagne the God gave money. He's Gullah. He actually gave money to.
I thought he was Nigerian.
So you start then thinking of this native culture. This is our brightest. This is Americans. This is where this is coming from. The maintenance of this culture, and you can still go here today, and you can tell people who are Gullah. You know, you still have some Jondas. You know, you can see it. The show. You know, I mean, you can see it physically. It's because they basically have maintained like isolation.
Well,
Hello.
thank you.
And we worked together at USC.
Okay, we're moving on. The kids were as good as they could be. And trying to see what else there is here. The boys really want to interact with things. We have to keep them off some of the art. But the next exhibit that we spent some time at was actually someone that we know in Chicago, Theaster Gates. He does a lot of work in pottery. However, he also does a lot of community building, and one of the most amazing things that he does is connect artists. So I actually love to show my kids people of color doing different things, having different experiences. So even though they're young, I feel like this is where I start introducing them to the ideas that we are so much bigger and so much there's so much connection in the diaspora across the world. And that's what I want to instill in my boys and you guys to see what I saw on our way to this. And so we walked in kind of in the middle of the film. Let's see what we can hear.
Intellectual without having to put any mask on, without having to be stealthy about it, without having to manage, if I display my intellect in this context, meaning the white context, then it's just gonna come with all this other stuff. It's gonna create a feedback loop that I gotta manage. And sometimes it's simpler than to just pretend to be as dumb as they're so. And so when I entered into bar the first time, I think the first thing that impressed itself on me was that was not what this was. That this was a space where you could be a free black man.
This was special because it was about the people, and it was about the gathering of people, and it was about Black people coming together to celebrate our artistic similarities, our artistic differences. You started attracting like ballers, right? It wasn't just like the scrappy young bloods. It was like luminaries sharing space with like the young bloods. It was beautiful, intergenerational. Like some of these young artists who are now the shit.
You know, he speaks to a certain thing that maybe I know I was raised with, which is a culpability for the well-being of Black people around me, like just them surviving, period. And I've encountered people who maybe weren't raised with that or that was not activated.
So when I take my kids to stuff like this, I try to point out things that I think are important about culture and ingenuity and things that they can connect to. This is just more of the architecture and all of the layouts. So we did this for a little while. We went outside, saw the garden, and then we saw some other amazing art. Check these things out. Okay, this is coming on to my favorite, well, one of my favorite exhibits, which was from Africa. And it was amazing. Like everything about this, the artist, the idea, the imagination, and the thing that was amazing is how there was all of this connectivity of not just what could be to come, but what was. So there was this connectivity of not just the world, but also the people. And looking at the images and how they also incorporate so much of what is Africa that you know of, like the beauty of it and the beauty of the people that are there, and actually including some aspects of what is their culture, what's tribal, what's, looking at some of the photos here of the people with tribal markings representing their culture, while also being a part of like this ingenuity that is to come and that could be changing the face of Africa. So like this is the artist, and I just wanted to show this man, his name. So if you want to look more into this, because what he created was so amazing. And these are some examples of some of the photos that I'm talking about with these beautiful women. And you can see like the markings, like their makeup, the markings on their face, along with wearing these traditional looks, but what it looks like in the future. So I really appreciated this exhibit, and we spent a good amount of time in here. And I just want to apologize for my camera work, because like honestly, I'm doing my best while my 5-year-old is also like tugging at my leg and asking to leave. So here we are. We're going to, I put this on here so that if anybody wants to pause and read, they can pause and read. So do that if you must. And I was so obsessed with it. I just want to show you guys some of the really cool models that were there. We were able to sit in for a few minutes. So let's see if you can hear what's going on the film.
Protocols operate extremely sovereign domains within their host countries, which has raised concerns about the potential erosion of local traditions and cultural institutions as the network expands.
While the protocols are undeniably an acquisitive force for hyper-travel and environmentalism, critics argue that as Africa continues to navigate its post-colonial landscape, the potential cost of this expansion cannot be ignored.
So we left there and we went outside to a different garden just to kind of check it out. The boys were, well, actually the little one fell asleep. So we got lucky there, but the 5-year-old needs more like what's going on. So we went out to this little, I guess it's kind of zen out here. I don't know what you guys think. We spent a little time outside before we hit up some more exhibits. So I thought I'd show you how Auntie decided to drag this one around. He's covered up because we're trying to keep him asleep as long as possible, because he was not pleased, as you could hear in some of the video clips. Anyway, so we're off to some more exhibits, and I just want to show you guys everything that was around here. It was huge, like absolutely huge. We did visit the Japanese exhibit as well, which was really cool. We spent a little time in here. Of course, I mean, everything that Japan does is so clean and innovative. So we spent a little time looking at this. We hit up the French exhibit, which was a mix between audio and metal. And I'm gonna be honest with you, I don't know what this stuff is. And there were no placards to explain exactly what this was supposed to be, but it was a bit interactive. So as you can see, this woman who has no sympathy for children wouldn't move. Next, we hit up Great Britain, which was amazing. It was another place that I really wanted my 5-year-old to feel like the rhythm of different people and different things and the connectivity of us all. So it was very cool in here, like the music, the sounds, the sculpture, all of the arts. So again, I am trying to point out certain things to him. He says this looks like cheese. And I said, I think it's supposed to be the moon. But anyway, cheese or the moon, whatever he thinks. And this was another really interesting piece. And he was like wanting to touch it. As you can see, he's like, yes, it's blue. Can we play? And I said, no. Sky and water. So this is a little bit of the exhibit that was in Great Britain. Now, I didn't know that it was a competition or there was some competition aspects to this. So we spent a little time in here looking at the sculptures, but we are going to go next to who won the competition. So I try again to show, I was trying to talk to my kid right now about like the music that we could hear in the other room, and he didn't care. So here we are in Brazil. Brazil is actually who won this competition. And it was about the earth. And we know that like Brazil and Africa and these countries are really the future for all of us and our survival. So they did a great job showing the connectivity of indigenous people and their lives to the world. And I'm supposing that is probably why they won. We ended up spending so much time in these exhibits that honestly, we started running late for our train home. It went so quickly, and I really did enjoy this. And we spent a good amount of time seeing the things that we could see, and I wish I could have spent more time. But like I said, we spent too much time visiting what we did visit, and then we ended up kind of rushing to get back. So we had to get a private water taxi to our train. This was the first time I ever tried to hail a cab on the water, but guess what? I got one. And here are the boys having the time of their life. Well, at least one of them is definitely having the time of his life. He's been wanting to go on a speedboat forever, so he's excited. The other one, well, he wasn't feeling it that much. Anyway, all first class after that. Guys, if you guys haven't subscribed to my channel, please subscribe like right now. And I'll be showing you more of my life and what we do. If you have questions about kids in Venice, please go ahead and ask me and I can do a video about that as well. But now, ciao, ciao.